My son told me to get out of the house because his wife and he wanted to live there alone. I was in the kitchen making coffee when Michael walked in with Jessica behind him. They both had that expression I had learned to recognize over the past few months. That look that said they had been talking about me in their room, planning something, deciding something about my life without consulting me. "Mom, we need to talk." My son's voice sounded distant, as if he were reading a script someone else had written for him. I dried my hands on my apron and turned to look at him. He was 32 years old, but at that moment, he seemed like a stranger, a man I didn't recognize. "You're old now, so you have to step aside to give your son what's best for him." That's what he said. My own son. The child I carried in my womb for 9 months. The baby I nursed until my nipples bled. The little boy I comforted every time he had a nightmare. The teenager I defended when the world seemed too big and terrifying. Jessica watched me with her arms crossed, that barely visible smile on her lips. A smile of triumph, as if she had just won a battle I didn't even know we were fighting. "I don't understand, Michael. What are you saying?" My voice came out calmer than I expected. Maybe because a part of me already knew. Maybe because the last 6 months had been a slow, painful preparation for this exact moment. "What I'm saying is that Jessica and I need our space. We're a family now, Mom. We need privacy. We need to build our life together, without you being here all the time, without me being there, in my own house." But he didn't know. Neither of them knew. This house, with its cream-colored walls that I painted myself, with the garden I planted tree by tree, with every piece of furniture I bought with the sweat of my brow, this house was mine. Legally mine. Completely mine. I remember the day Michael was born as if it were yesterday. It was a Tuesday in February, and it was so hot that even the nurses were complaining. The public hospital smelled of disinfectant and fear. I was alone in that white room with the scratchy sheets. His father had left us 2 months earlier. He said he wasn't ready. He said he had a life ahead of him. He said a lot of things that meant nothing in the end. When they placed Michael on my chest, when I felt the weight of his warm little body against my heart, I swore he would never lack for anything. I swore he would have everything I never had. A home of our own, food every day, clean clothes, new shoes, an education, and I kept every promise. I worked 3 jobs for years. I got up at 4 in the morning to clean offices before the executives arrived. At 9 o'clock, I was in the hospital laundry, stuffing stained sheets into industrial machines that left my arms aching. In the afternoons, I sold pies that I baked in the early morning hours while Michael slept. On weekends, I cleaned houses for families who had everything I dreamed of having one day, my hands filled with calluses. My back started to hurt before I was 40. My knees creaked every time I climbed stairs. But I never complained. I never let Michael see how tired I was. For him, life was always easy. There was always money for his school supplies. There was always a hot meal on the table. There was always a safe roof over his head. When he turned 15, I gave him a new bicycle. I still remember the look of happiness on his face when he saw it in the living room that morning. "Mom, is this really for me?" His eyes shone as if I had given him the whole world. And in a way, that's what I was trying to do. To give him the world I never had, I paid for his high school prom. I rented the hall, hired the DJ, bought the 3-tiered cake he wanted. I spent 2 months' salary on that party. But to see him happy, to see him surrounded by friends, to see him being a normal, carefree kid, that was worth every dollar. When he met Jessica, I embroidered the tablecloth myself for the first dinner we had together. I spent 2 days making a brisket. I cleaned the house until every corner sparkled. I wanted to make a good impression. I wanted that girl to know that my son came from a decent family, from a mother who cared about the details. Jessica arrived in a pretty dress and with perfect manners. "Mrs. Susan, what a lovely house you have." "Mrs. Susan, the food is delicious." "Mrs. Susan, I can tell you take great care of Michael." I smiled with pride. I thought he had found a good girl. A polite girl who would make my son happy. How wrong I was. When they got married, when Michael came to ask me for help because they had nowhere to live, I didn't hesitate for a second. "Of course, sweetheart. Come home. Stay as long as you need. This is your house, too." I gave them the biggest bedroom, the one with the private bathroom and the balcony overlooking the garden. I moved into the small room in the back. I didn't mind. I thought it would be temporary. I thought in a few months they would get their own place and everything would go back to normal. But the months passed and they settled in. First, they brought their furniture. Then they changed the curtains in the living room. Then Jessica started rearranging the kitchen her way. Little by little, without me realizing it, my house stopped feeling like my house. The change in Jessica was gradual but constant. At first, she helped with dinner. She would ask if I needed anything from the market. She would smile when I told her stories about Michael as a child. But that barely lasted 3 months. Then she started coming home late from work and locking herself straight in her room. She stopped helping in the kitchen. She stopped asking about my day. Her tone of voice changed, too. She stopped calling me Mrs. Susan with that respect from the beginning. Now it was just Susan, dry, without affection. As if we were roommates instead of family. I kept quiet. I've always been good at keeping quiet, at swallowing the words that hurt, at smiling even when I was falling apart inside. That's how I was raised. That's how I survived so many years alone. Women of my generation learned that complaining was useless, that it was better to endure, to adapt, to make everything seem fine. But things were not fine. One day I came home from the market and discovered my dining room chair was no longer in its place. The chair that had been mine for 20 years, the one at the head of the table, was gone. In its place was a new, modern chair, dark wood with gray cushions. Jessica had bought it without asking me. My old chair was shoved in the laundry room, as if it were trash waiting to be taken out. And my chair? My voice sounded smaller than I wanted. Jessica looked up from her phone for just a second. Oh, that. It was just so old and didn't match the table. I bought a new one. It looks better. Don't you think? She didn't ask if I agreed. She didn't consult me. She just did it. As if I had no voice or vote in my own home. I waited for Michael to say something. He was right there, sitting on the couch watching television. But he said nothing. He didn't even turn to look at me. That night I cried silently in my small room in the back, the room that used to be the pantry, the windowless room where my bed barely fit. I cried for the chair. I cried for my son who no longer defended me. I cried for the house that was slowly ceasing to be mine, even though my name was on all the papers. Because that was something they didn't know. This house was in my name. Every document, every deed, every proof of payment. Everything, said Susan Miller. Just my name. No one else. I bought it 18 years ago with money I saved for a decade. I lived in rented rooms, in damp basements, in places where cockroaches crawled on the walls. But every month I put something away. $50. $100 when I could. Sometimes only $20. I hid it in a coffee can in the back of the closet. Michael never knew. When I finally had enough for the down payment, when I signed those papers at the title company's office with my hands shaking with emotion, I felt like I had achieved the impossible. A single woman, with no education, with no help from anyone, buying her own house. My own house. But now that house felt like a prison. The humiliations continued. Every day brought something new. Something small that didn't seem so bad on its own, but added to everything else, it was slowly suffocating me. One Saturday morning, I came down for breakfast and found the table set for 2. Only 2 plates. Only 2 cups. Only 2 chairs occupied. Jessica and Michael were eating breakfast peacefully, as if I didn't exist. And me? Jessica didn't even look up from her plate. Oh, I thought you were still asleep. You can get yourself something in the kitchen if you want. In the kitchen. As if I were the maid. As if I weren't the owner of that table, those chairs, every plate and every cup they were using. Michael ate in silence. He didn't look at me. He said nothing. And that silence hurt more than any insult, because it meant he agreed. That for him, too, I was invisible, expendable, an obstacle in his perfect life with his perfect wife in their perfect house. Except it wasn't their house. It was mine. I started eating standing up in the kitchen that morning, and the next, and the next. Because sitting alone at that table while they ate together in the dining room was more humiliating than standing by the sink. Then came the issue with the bathroom. One night I knocked on the door of the bathroom that was next to my old room, the one I had always used. Jessica opened it wrapped in a towel, steam billowing out behind her. "I need to use the bathroom." She looked at me as if I had asked for something absurd. "Can't you use the one down the hall? This is our private bathroom now. Michael and I prefer it to be just for us. You know, for privacy. Our bathroom. The bathroom I had cleaned for years. The bathroom where I changed the tiles with my own hands. The bathroom I paid for, that I maintained. That was part of my house." But I nodded, because that's what I always did. Nod. Keep quiet. Swallow. The hall bathroom was farther from my room. I had to walk through the whole house in the middle of the night when I got up. But I did it. Night after night. Walking in the dark like an intruder in my own home. The pension was next. I received a modest pension check each month. $600 that I had earned after working 30 years at the hospital. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was the only security I had for my old age. One day, Michael sat down with me in the living room. He had that serious expression he used when he wanted to ask for something important. "Mom, we have a problem with the credit cards. Jessica and I got a little in debt with the wedding and the new furniture. We need help making the monthly payments." "How much do you need?" "About $400 a month. Just for a few months, until we get back on our feet. $400. 2/3 of my pension." But he was my son. My only son. How could I say no? "Of course, sweetheart. I can help you." His face lit up. He hugged me like he hadn't hugged me in months. "Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I promise it's temporary." But it wasn't temporary. The months passed, and Michael kept showing up on the day my check arrived. The deposit came in. "Mom, this will cover us for this month." Always with a smile. Always with a new excuse for why they still couldn't pay me back. I was living on $200 a month. $200 for my medicine, for my food, for any emergency. And I couldn't even buy what I wanted because Jessica had started controlling the grocery shopping. "You don't need to buy that, Susan. I already made the list of what we need." She wouldn't let me cook my own dishes anymore. I couldn't choose what to eat. I didn't decide anything in my own kitchen. One afternoon I was sitting in the small armchair in the corner of the living room, the only place Jessica hadn't redecorated, when I heard voices in the hallway. It was the two of them. They were talking quietly, but the hallway echoed. "I don't know why your mom is still here. She's just a burden. She just uses electricity, water, food." Jessica's voice sounded annoyed, impatient. "I know, but I can't just kick her out. She's my mom." "Well, you should. This house is too small for 3 people. We need privacy. We need space for when we have kids. Or do you plan on raising our children with your mom living here?" Silence. I waited for Michael's response. I waited for him to say that I would always have a place in his life, that I was his mother, and that meant something, that I had sacrificed everything for him. "You're right. I'll talk to her." Those 4 words shattered me more than everything else combined, because they meant my son had already made a decision, that to him, I was expendable. That 32 years of sacrifice, of love, of total devotion, meant nothing compared to his wife's comfort. I sat in that armchair for hours after they went to bed. The house was silent, but my mind was screaming. I remembered every dawn I woke up aching to go to work, every meal I skipped so he could eat, every dream I abandoned so he could achieve his. And now he was kicking me out of my own house. But there was something they didn't know, something I had kept secret all these years. This house wasn't Michael's. It never had been. It never would be. This house was mine, completely mine. And I had all the documents locked in a safe deposit box at the bank. That night, in the darkness of my small windowless room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to plead for them to let me stay in my own house. I wasn't going to humiliate myself any more than they already had. But I also wasn't going to leave and hand them everything on a silver platter. If they wanted the house, if they wanted to live alone, if they wanted to get rid of me like I was a piece of old furniture, then they were going to learn a lesson they would never forget. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the cracked ceiling of my room, the room that was once my pantry and was now my cell. I thought about everything. Every sacrifice, every tear, every moment I put my son above my own happiness. I remembered when Michael was 5 and got pneumonia. I spent 3 nights without sleep at the hospital, sitting in a plastic chair by his bed, holding his little hand while I brought his fever down with damp cloths. I didn't have health insurance then. The hospital bill was $2,000. It took me a year to pay it off. But I did. Every cent. I remembered when he turned 12 and all his classmates went to a summer camp. Michael came home with the brochure and those bright, hopeful eyes. "Mom, can I go? Please." The camp cost $300. I was earning $800 a month working 14-hour days, but I told him yes. I worked extra shifts for 2 months. I ate only bread and beans to save money. But he went to that camp. I remembered the day of his college graduation. I was in the front row, wearing the dress I'd bought secondhand at the thrift store, but which I had cleaned and ironed until it looked new. I cried when I saw him walk across the stage to get his diploma. I cried with pride. I cried with happiness. I cried because I had managed to give him what I never had: an education, opportunities, a future. And now, that same son was kicking me out of my house. I deserve more than this. I wrote that sentence on a piece of paper that night, the first of many I would write in the following days. Sentences that reminded me who I was. Sentences that gave me back the dignity they were trying to take from me. The next morning, I went down to breakfast as usual. Jessica and Michael were already at the table. 2 plates, 2 cups, as if I didn't exist. But this time, I didn't serve myself in the kitchen. This time, I took out a plate, poured myself some coffee, and sat in the only empty chair left in that dining room. Jessica looked at me, surprised. Michael kept eating without looking up, but I was there, taking up my space. At my table, in my house. I said nothing. I just ate in silence. When I finished, I washed my plate and went up to my room. I pulled an old box from under the bed where I kept important documents. Inside was the deed to the house. The paper that proved Susan Miller was the sole legal owner of this property. I read the whole thing. Every line, every word, as if it were the first time. And for the first time in months, I smiled. The bills were there too: electricity, water, gas, internet, all in my name, all paid by me for the last 18 years. Michael and Jessica paid nothing. Absolutely nothing. They lived for free in my house, used my utilities, ate my food bought with my pension, and on top of that, treated me as if I should be grateful they let me stay. I put everything back in the box. But this time, I locked it and hid it better, because I knew I would need it soon. The next few days were strange. I kept to my normal routine, but something in me had changed. I no longer lowered my gaze when Jessica spoke to me in that dismissive tone. I no longer apologized for taking up space. I no longer made myself small so they could feel bigger, Jessica noticed. I saw it in her eyes. That confusion, that annoyance that I was no longer behaving like the submissive old woman she expected. One afternoon, while she was watching television in the living room, I walked past and sat on the large sofa. The sofa she had declared as hers for the past few weeks. That's my spot. Her voice had that spoiled child's tone she used when she wanted her way. "It's a sofa, Jessica. It doesn't have an owner." She looked at me as if I had slapped her. She opened her mouth to say something but closed it again. She got up and stomped off to her room. I heard her telling Michael. I heard him tell her not to make drama over a sofa. But it wasn't about the sofa. It was because I had stopped giving in. And that bothered them more than anything. I started leaving the house more. Before, I would spend all day locked in my room so I wouldn't bother them. To stay out of their way. To make myself invisible, just as they wanted. But now I went for walks in the mornings. I went to the park. I sat on the benches and watched the children play. I talked with other ladies my age who were also there. It was on one of those mornings that I met Ruth. She was 68 years old and had a smile that lit up everything around her. We sat on the same bench by chance. She was feeding breadcrumbs to the pigeons. I was just staring at the horizon, lost in thought. "You look sad, dear." Her voice was soft, motherly. I turned to look at her, and something in her eyes made me feel safe. as if I could tell her the truth without being judged. I'm tired. Those 2 words opened a floodgate. I told her everything. While the pigeons pecked at the bread at our feet, while the morning sun warmed our backs, I told her about Michael, about Jessica, about the humiliations, about the pension, about feeling invisible in my own house. Ruth listened without interrupting. When I finished, when I had no words left, she took my hand in hers. Her hands were wrinkled and spotted with age, but her grip was firm. Is this house in your name? Yes. Are the utilities in your name? Yes. Do they pay for anything? No. Nothing. Then, honey, you have all the power. You just haven't realized it yet. Her words stayed with me for the rest of the day. You have all the power. It was true. I had the house. I paid for everything. I was in control. I had just been so used to giving in, to pleasing, to doing what others expected of me, that I had forgotten my own power. That night I wrote another sentence on my paper. I don't need permission to start over. I taped it to the mirror in my room, where I could see it every morning when I woke up, where it would remind me who I really was. Ruth and I started meeting every day in the park. She became my confidant, the friend I never knew I needed. She told me her own story, how she had gone through something similar with her eldest son, how she'd had to make difficult decisions to get her dignity back. One day she took me for coffee at a small cafe near the park. As she stirred the sugar in her cup, she looked at me seriously. What are you going to do, Susan? I don't know yet. A lie. I did know. I had known since that night I heard them talking about me in the hallway, since my son said I was a burden, since he decided his wife was more important than the woman who gave him life. But saying it out loud would make it real, and I wasn't ready for that yet. Ruth seemed to understand. When you're ready, I'll be here, for whatever you need. I thanked her with a smile. It was comforting to know I wasn't alone, that there was someone in the world who saw me, who heard me, who didn't treat me like I was invisible. The following weeks were for silent preparation, while Michael and Jessica went on with their lives, planning their future in my house as if it were already theirs. I started moving pieces on the board without them noticing. First, I went to the bank. On a Tuesday morning, when they were at work, I put on my best blouse, the one I saved for special occasions, and walked the 6 blocks to the branch where I'd had my account for 15 years. Good morning, Mrs. Miller. How can I help you? The teller knew me. She had helped me hundreds of times over the years. Always kind, always respectful. I need to speak to someone about my account, and about changing a few things. They directed me to a small office where a young banker, no older than 30, looked up my information on his computer. I see your pension is deposited here every month. Is there a problem? Not exactly a problem. I want to change my online banking password, and I want to make sure no one else has access to my account. The young man nodded. Professional, of course. Does anyone else currently have access? My son has the password. I gave it to him months ago when he helped me set up the app on my phone. I thought it was just to teach me how to use it. I didn't know that with that information, he could log in whenever he wanted. I didn't know he could see every dollar that came in and out. I didn't know that he and Jessica were checking my account to know exactly when my pension arrived. I want that to change. Not a problem. We'll generate a new password right now. And if you'd like, we can activate 2-step verification for added security. It took us an hour to fix everything. New password, 2-step verification. Alerts to my cell phone for every transaction. The young man explained everything patiently, repeating the instructions until I understood them perfectly. When I left the bank, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control, power over my own life. That afternoon when I got home, Jessica was in the kitchen. She looked me up and down. Where were you, all dressed up? I had things to do. I didn't offer any more explanations. I didn't owe her any. I went up to my room and put away the new papers the bank had given me. Documents that proved only I had access to my money now. 2 days later, I went to a lawyer's office. Ruth came with me. I didn't want to go alone. I didn't want to feel like I was doing something wrong, even though I knew I wasn't. I was just protecting what was mine. The lawyer was an older gentleman with thick glasses and a deep voice. He reviewed the deed to my house carefully. Everything is in order, Mrs. Miller. This property is entirely yours. There are no other names on the documents. What can I help you with? I want to know what my options are. If I wanted to sell this house, could I? Of course. You are the sole owner. You can sell whenever you like without needing anyone's authorization. And if there are people living there, if they have no registered lease agreement, if they don't pay rent, then they are guests. You can ask them to leave by giving them reasonable advance notice. His words gave me clarity. Michael and Jessica didn't pay rent. They had no contract. They had no legal rights to my house. They were simply guests I had invited out of kindness. And I could revoke that invitation whenever I wanted. How much do you think my house would be worth if I sold it? The lawyer took note of the address, the size, the features. He did some calculations. In the current market, a house like yours in that area could sell for between $60,000 and $70,000, maybe more if it's in good condition. $70,000. It was more money than I had ever seen in my life. It was enough to buy something smaller, simpler, just for me, and I would have leftovers to live comfortably without depending on anyone. How long would the sale process take? It depends. If you find a buyer quickly, with all the papers in order, it could close in 2 or 3 months. I thanked him for his time. Ruth and I left in silence. We didn't talk until we were sitting on a park bench, our usual spot. Are you going to do it? Are you going to sell the house? Her question hung in the air between us. A question I had asked myself hundreds of times in recent weeks. I don't know yet, but I want to be prepared. I want to know I have options, that I'm not trapped. Ruth nodded. It's good to have a plan. It's good to protect yourself. It's not revenge, honey. It's survival. Survival. That word resonated with me. Because that's exactly what I was doing. Surviving. After years of giving, of yielding, of sacrificing, I was finally putting my own survival first. That night at home, Michael came looking for me. He walked into my room without knocking, as if he had the right to enter whenever he pleased. Mom, I need you to transfer me some money. It's $500. The car needs repairs. Before, I would have said yes immediately. Before, I would have grabbed my phone and transferred the money without asking questions. But now I had a new password. Now I had alerts. Now I had control. I can't, Michael. He looked at me, confused. What do you mean, you can't? Your pension just came in 3 days ago. So he was checking my account. So he did know exactly when my money arrived. I have expenses this month. I don't have enough. But you always help me with these things, Mom. I know. And I've been helping you for months. But I can't anymore. His face changed. Confusion turned to annoyance. What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like this? Like what, Michael? Like someone who also has needs? Like someone who also exists? Let's not start with that again. We already talked about this. No. You talked. You decided. I just obeyed. As always. He fell silent. He didn't know what to say. It was probably the first time in years I had contradicted him. The first time I had told him no. It's only $500, Mom. Only, as if $500 wasn't almost my entire pension after giving him $400 every month. As if I didn't have to eat, buy medicine, live. I don't have the money, Michael. I'm sorry. He stormed out of my room, slamming the door. I heard him tell Jessica. I heard her say I was being selfish. I heard them plan to borrow from someone else because his own mother had failed them. But it didn't affect me like before, because I knew the truth. I knew I wasn't the selfish one. I knew that for 32 years, I hadn't been selfish for a single day. I knew it was time to think about me. The next day, I went out early again. This time, I went to a real estate office. A small office with pictures of houses in the window. A woman in her 40s greeted me with a smile. Good morning. Are you looking to buy or sell? I want some information about selling and maybe about buying something smaller. I gave her my home address. She looked it up on her computer. I know that area. Those are good houses, well located. If it's in decent condition, I can get you a buyer in less than a month. That fast? There's a lot of demand right now. Young couples are looking for houses in that area, with 3 bedrooms, close to schools and public transport. Believe me, it will sell fast. She showed me other options, smaller apartments, one-bedroom houses, places where a single woman could live comfortably and safely, places that would cost half of what my house was worth, places where I could have peace. Let me think about it. I'll call you back soon. The woman gave me her card. Natalie Gomez, real estate agent. I put it in my purse, along with the brochures for the apartments she had shown me. Bright apartments with small balconies, places where I could have coffee in the mornings without feeling watched, places where I could breathe. When I got back home that afternoon, the tension was palpable. Jessica didn't even greet me. Michael was in the living room with a sour look on his face. I went straight up to my room and closed the door. I took out the brochures and spread them on my bed. A one-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from here. It cost $30,000. It had a full kitchen, a full bathroom, a small but cozy living room. In the photos, it looked clean, simple, perfect for one person. If I sold my house for $70,000, I could buy that apartment and have $40,000 left over. I could live comfortably for years. I wrote another sentence on my paper that night. The day is coming when they will stop underestimating me. I taped it next to the others on my mirror. Now I had 3 sentences looking back at me every morning. 3 reminders that I was worth more than this, that I deserved more than this. The following days were strange. Michael barely spoke to me. Jessica ignored me completely. They ate together, went out together, made their plans as if I were a ghost, but something had changed. Now when they ignored me, it didn't hurt like before, because I knew something they didn't. I had a plan. One morning, Ruth invited me to her house for breakfast. She lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. I had to take 2 buses to get there, but it was worth it. Her home was cozy, full of plants and photos of her grandchildren. It smelled of fresh coffee and pastries. "Sit down, honey. I made you some pancakes." We sat at her small round table by the window. The morning light streamed in softly, illuminating everything. We ate in silence for a few minutes. A comfortable, tension-free silence. "Have you decided what you're going to do?" Ruth always got straight to the point. It was one of the things I appreciated most about her. "I think so. I think I'm going to sell the house." Saying it out loud made it real. For the first time, I admitted to someone else what I had been planning in secret for weeks. And do they know? Not yet, but they will soon. Ruth set her fork down on the plate and took my hand. "It's going to be hard, Susan. Your son is going to be angry. He's going to say hurtful things. He's going to try to make you feel guilty. I know. But you have to stand firm. You have to remember everything you've been through, everything they've done to you. You're not being cruel. You're being fair to yourself." Her words gave me strength, because she was right. I wasn't being vengeful. I wasn't trying to hurt them. I was just taking back what was mine. I was just choosing myself for the first time in decades. After breakfast, Ruth showed me her home. It was small, but full of life. Every corner had something special. A plant she had grown from a cutting, a photograph of her late husband, a knitting project she was making for her granddaughter. This is what I bought when I left my son's house. I paid $25,000 for it 5 years ago. It's small, yes, but it's mine. No one tells me where to sit. No one makes me feel like I'm in the way. I have peace here. Peace. What a beautiful word. What a distant concept from my current reality. Do you regret your decision? Ruth looked at me with those wise eyes that had seen so much. Not for a single day. The first few months were hard. My son didn't speak to me for 6 months. But eventually, he understood. And now we have a better relationship because he respects me. Because he knows he can't treat me however he wants. That's what I wanted. Respect. Not love conditioned on my obedience. Not affection in exchange for my money. Just basic respect as a human being. I returned home that afternoon with renewed determination. I walked in and went straight to my room. I took out my phone and called Natalie, the real estate agent. "Miss Gomez, this is Susan Miller. I came to your office a few days ago." "Yes, Mrs. Miller. I remember you. Have you made a decision?" "Yes. I want to sell my house." "When can you come see it?" "How about tomorrow morning? Say, at 10 o'clock?" Perfect. I'll expect you then. I hung up the phone with shaking hands. I had done it. I had taken the first real step. There was no turning back now. I barely slept that night. I thought about everything. How Michael would react when he found out. What Jessica would say. What my life would look like after this. But I also thought about Ruth's peace. Her light-filled apartment. Her smile when she told me she didn't regret it for a single day. The next morning, I got up early. I cleaned the house like I hadn't cleaned it in months. I wanted it to look good when Natalie arrived. I wanted her to see the potential. The walls I had painted. The garden I had cultivated. The floors I had installed with a neighbor's help years ago. This house held my sweat, my effort, my dreams. And now I was going to sell it. Not because I didn't love it, but because I loved it too much to let it become the stage for my humiliation. Michael and Jessica left for work as usual, without saying goodbye. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Natalie arrived with a folder and a professional camera. "Good morning, Mrs. Miller. Ready to start?" "Ready." I showed her every room, the living room with the large sofa where I used to sit, the dining room with the table I had bought on a payment plan 15 years ago, the kitchen where I had prepared thousands of meals, the 3 bedrooms, the 2 bathrooms, the small backyard with the lemon tree I planted when Michael was 10. Natalie took photos, measured spaces, made notes in her folder. "It's a beautiful house, Mrs. Miller, and it's very well maintained. You'll have no problem selling it. How much do you think I can get? In the current market, I would list it at $75,000. We can negotiate from there, but I'm sure we'll get at least $70,000. $70,000. My freedom had a price. And that was it. How long do you need to prepare everything? 1 week for the legal documents. Then we can list the house and start receiving offers. I repeat, I'm sure it will sell quickly. Let's do it." I signed the preliminary papers right there, at my dining room table. My hand was shaking a little, but not from fear, from excitement, from anticipation, from the taste of freedom that was approaching. Natalie left, promising to call me in a few days. I stayed in the living room, looking at the house as if seeing it for the first time. This had been my home for 18 years. I had raised my son here. I had cried, laughed, dreamed, and suffered here. These walls knew all my secrets, but I didn't feel at home here anymore. Not since Jessica arrived. Not since Michael decided his wife was more important than his mother. Not since I became a stranger in my own home. I didn't come for revenge. I came to get back what belongs to me. I wrote that sentence that afternoon, the 4th in my collection. I taped it to the mirror next to the others. 4 reminders of my worth. 4 truths I needed to repeat to myself every day. The next few days were for silent preparation. While I waited for Natalie's call confirming everything was ready, I started to organize my things. Little by little, without anyone noticing, I began separating what was mine from what belonged to the house. There was more than I thought. Photographs stored in boxes, important documents, the set of dishes I inherited from my mother, the bed linens I bought when I first moved in, old books with dog-eared corners, small treasures I had accumulated over the years. I started packing them in bags and suitcases in the back of my closet. Michael and Jessica never entered my room, so there was no risk of them finding out. Every night, after they fell asleep, I would pack a little more. It was during one of those moments that I found an old photo album. I opened it carefully. The pages were yellowed with time. There was Michael as a baby, wrapped in the green blanket I had knitted myself during my pregnancy. Michael taking his first steps. Michael on his first day of school in the uniform that cost me 2 weeks of extra tips. One photo in particular stopped me. It was from his 10th birthday. I had saved for months to throw him a party. I invited all his classmates. I made the cake myself, 3 tiers with his favorite character drawn in frosting. In the photo, Michael was hugging me tightly, with that pure love only children know how to give. I was smiling, tired but happy. How far away that day seemed now. I closed the album carefully and put it in one of the bags. It was mine. They were my memories. I would take them with me no matter where I went. On Thursday morning, Natalie called me. "Mrs. Miller, everything is ready. The papers are in order. We can list the house today if you agree. I agree. Perfect. I'll post it on the real estate websites this afternoon. And tomorrow we can put the sign up in the yard. The sign. That meant Michael and Jessica would see it. That meant everything would come to light. Does it have to be tomorrow? Can't it wait a few more days? Mrs. Miller, the faster we start, the faster we'll find a buyer. The sign is important. The neighbors see it. They talk. They recommend. It's part of the process. She was right. I couldn't keep postponing the inevitable. All right, tomorrow then. That night, I barely touched my dinner. Michael and Jessica ate in the dining room as always, ignoring me. I stayed in the kitchen with a bowl of soup that grew cold as I stared out the window at the garden that would soon no longer be mine. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, the storm would begin, and I had to be ready. I went up to my room early. I took out all the important documents I had saved. The deed to the house, the utility bills, the bank statements, the contract with the real estate agency. I put them all in a folder that I hid at the bottom of my largest suitcase. I also changed the passwords for my email accounts, my social media profile, everything that Michael might try to check when he found out. Because I knew him. I knew what he was like when he got angry. I knew he would try to find information, to control me, to stop me. But he couldn't anymore. I had closed all the doors. Friday dawned cloudy. I woke up with a knot in my stomach. I ate breakfast alone in the kitchen while Michael and Jessica got ready for work. They left at 8:30, as always. At 9 o'clock, Natalie arrived with an assistant. They brought the sign. It was large, bright red with white letters that said "For Sale," followed by the real estate office's phone number. They hammered it into the front yard, right where everyone passing by on the street could see it, where the neighbors could see it, where Michael and Jessica couldn't ignore it when they got home from work. "Are you sure about this, Mrs. Miller?" Natalie asked me gently, as if sensing my nervousness. I'm sure. And I was. For the first time in months, I was completely sure of something. We already have 3 appointments for tomorrow. People interested in seeing the house. So quickly? I told you, this area is in high demand. You won't regret this. Natalie left, promising to call me that night with more details. I went inside and sat in the living room. From the window, I could see the sign. For sale. 2 words that changed everything. The hours passed slowly. I went to the park to find Ruth. I needed to talk to someone. I needed someone to tell me I was doing the right thing. I found her on our usual bench, knitting a small sweater for her granddaughter. I did it. I put the house up for sale. Ruth stopped knitting and looked at me with those understanding eyes. "How do you feel?" "Scared. Relieved." "I don't know. It's normal to feel all of that. You're doing something very brave, honey. What if I regret it? What if Michael hates me forever? If he hates you for protecting yourself, for getting your dignity back, then that hate says more about him than it does about you." She was right. I knew she was right. But a part of me, that part that had been a mother before a woman, that had put my son above everything for 32 years, that part still hurt. I returned home at 4 in the afternoon. The sign was still there, bright and visible under the sun that had broken through the clouds. I made myself some tea and sat down to wait. Michael got home from work at 6 o'clock, Jessica a little later. At 6 to 10, I heard his car pull up. The door opened, his footsteps in the entryway, and then silence. A heavy silence that lasted too long. Then his voice, loud, angry. "Mom, what does this mean?" I came down the stairs calmly. He was in the living room, his phone in his hand, showing me a picture of the sign that a neighbor had probably sent him. "It means exactly what it says. I'm selling the house." "What do you mean, you're selling the house? This is our house." "No, Michael. This is my house. It has always been my house." His face turned red. I didn't know if it was from anger or shame. And what about us? Where are Jessica and I supposed to live? That's for you two to figure out. I can't live like this anymore. Like what? We've given you everything. We've let you live here. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It was a bitter laugh, filled with all the pain accumulated over the last few months. "You've let me live here? Michael, This house is mine. I bought it. I've paid for it for 18 years. You two are the ones who have been living here for free." He was speechless. For the first time, he seemed to be processing the truth. "But you told us we could stay. You opened your doors to us. And you abused that generosity. You treated me like I was a burden. You humiliated me. You made me feel invisible in my own home. That's not true, isn't it? Didn't you take away my dining room chair? Didn't you forbid me from using my own bathroom? Didn't you stop talking to me as if I didn't exist? Didn't you take my pension month after month while you and your wife made plans to kick me out?" He fell silent. He couldn't deny it because it was all true. Just then, Jessica arrived. She walked in the door and saw the tense atmosphere, saw my face, saw Michael's face. "What's wrong? My mother is selling the house." Jessica's face transformed. Surprise turned to fury in seconds. "What? How can she sell the house? We live here. You live here because I allowed it. This house is in my name. It always has been. And now I've decided to sell it." Jessica looked at me as if I had slapped her. Her face went from fury to something resembling panic. "You can't do that. We have rights. We've lived here for 2 years. You have no rights. You don't pay rent. You don't have a contract. I've already consulted a lawyer. You are guests in my house, and I can revoke that invitation whenever I want." My voice sounded firmer than I felt inside, but I couldn't show weakness now. Not after coming this far. And where are we supposed to go? That's not my problem, Jessica. You two wanted to live alone. You said I was a burden, that you needed your space. Well, now you'll have it. Find your own place. This is crazy. Michael, say something. Talk to your mother. Michael was looking at me as if he didn't know me, as if the woman in front of him were a stranger. "Mom, you can't do this. We're family." "Family? Did you treat me like family when your wife called me a useless old woman and you said nothing? Did you treat me like family when you decided to kick me out of my own house? Did you treat me like family when you took my pension every month without even asking if I needed that money? I was always going to pay you back. It's been 8 months, Michael. 8 months of $400. That's $3,200 that I never saw again. $3,200 I needed for my medicine, for my food, to live. I told you it was temporary. Nothing is temporary with you. You've always been this way. I've always given you everything, and you've always asked for more. And I've always said yes because you're my son. Because I love you. Because I sacrificed my entire life to give you yours. Then if you love me, don't do this." His words were like a punch to the gut. He was using my love against me, trying to manipulate me as he always had. And it probably would have worked before. But not anymore. It's precisely because I love you that I have to do this. Because if I don't, I will waste away here. I'll become a shadow, a ghost in my own life. And I can't do that, Michael. I can't keep dying a little bit every day just so you two can be happy. Jessica took a step toward me. Her face was a mask of contained rage. "You are a selfish woman. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? Like what, exactly? Like letting me eat standing up in the kitchen? Like forbidding me from using my own bathroom? Like taking my money without asking? Like planning to kick me out of my house? We never said we were going to kick you out. I heard you. That night in the hallway, Jessica telling Michael I was a burden. Michael saying he was going to talk to me. Planning my exit as if I were an old piece of furniture to be thrown away. The silence that followed was crushing. They couldn't deny what I had heard. Anyway, it's already done. The contract with the real estate agent is signed. The house is already listed. Tomorrow, the first interested buyers are coming to see it. We're not letting anyone in. Jessica's voice sounded desperate now. If you don't let the buyers in, if you try to sabotage the sale, I can call the police. This is my property, and I have every right to sell it. You are the ones with no legal right to be here. Michael slumped onto the sofa. He looked defeated, lost. I can't believe you're doing this to us, Mom. I can't believe you did what you did to me. But here we are. I turned and started to climb the stairs to my room. Wait. Do you already have a buyer? Not yet. But Natalie, the agent, says it will sell fast, probably in less than 2 months. And then what? Where are you going to go? That's my business. I already had it all planned. The apartment I had seen, the one that cost $30,000. Small, but enough for me. I had already spoken to the owner. I had already put down $1,000 from my secret savings as a deposit. I was just waiting for the house to sell to close the purchase. No one ate dinner that night. Michael and Jessica locked themselves in their room. I heard them arguing for hours. Their voices cut through the thin walls. Jessica blaming Michael. Michael not knowing what to do. Both of them panicking because their comfortable world was collapsing. I sat on my bed and looked at the phrases taped to my mirror. I deserve more than this. I don't need permission to start over. The day is coming when they will stop underestimating me. I didn't come for revenge. I came to get back what belongs to me. The day had come. It had finally arrived. The next day, Saturday morning, the first interested couple arrived. They were young, no older than 30. They came with their baby in their arms. Natalie guided them through the house while I waited in the yard. Michael and Jessica had locked themselves in their room and refused to come out. The couple spent almost an hour looking at every corner. I heard them asking questions, commenting on the size of the rooms, about the garden, about how well located the house was. When they came out, the woman smiled at me. "It's a beautiful house, ma'am. You can tell you've cared for it with a lot of love." "Thank you. Yes, I've put my heart into every corner." Natalie called me later. They loved it. They're going to make an offer. $72,000. $72,000. More than I expected. More than I needed to start over. How long do I have to decide? They need an answer in 2 days. They have the money ready. They can close in 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 1.5 months, and this would all be over. 1.5 months, and I would have my freedom. Tell them I accept. That afternoon, I went to the bank. I needed to talk to my banker. I needed to make sure that when the money from the sale arrived, it would be completely protected. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Miller. How can I help you? I'm going to be receiving a large sum of money in the coming weeks. It's from the sale of my house. I want to make sure it's secure, that no one else can access it. Of course, we can open a new account specifically for that deposit. With new passwords, with additional security verifications. It took us 2 hours to arrange everything. A new account, passwords that only I knew, alerts on my phone for every transaction. No one, absolutely no one but me, would have access to that money. When I left the bank, I felt lighter, as if I could finally breathe after months of suffocating. I went home and found Michael waiting for me in the living room. "I need to talk to you." His voice sounded different, more sober, almost pleading. "All right, let's talk." We sat across from each other. He looked tired. Deep dark circles under his eyes. Hair unkempt, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Mom, I know I've made mistakes. I know I haven't treated you right. But please, don't sell the house. We can fix things. Jessica and I will talk to you. We'll change. It's too late for that, Michael. Please, Mom, just give me a chance to make things right. I gave you chances for months. Every time I was humiliated and kept quiet, I was giving you a chance to defend me. Every time you took my money without asking if I needed it, I was giving you a chance to be better. Every time I was made invisible and I stayed, I was giving you a chance. I don't have any more chances to give, but you're my mom. And you are my son. My only son. The child I carried in my womb. The baby I nursed. The boy I raised alone. The young man I educated. The man I gave everything to. And still, when it came time to choose between your mother and your wife, between my dignity and your comfort, you cast me aside. Tears started to run down Michael's cheeks. It was the first time I had seen him cry since he was a boy. But those tears didn't move me like they used to. They no longer had the power to make me change my mind. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm truly sorry. I'm sorry too, Michael. I'm sorry things reached this point. I'm sorry you didn't value what you had until you lost it. I'm sorry it had to come to this for you to realize. We can still fix this. Tell me what you want. Anything. Just don't sell the house. What I want, you can't give me anymore. I want back the months I felt invisible. I want to erase every humiliation. I want to forget every time I was made to feel worthless. But that's not possible. It already happened, and there's no going back. He covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. A part of me, that maternal part that never fully dies, wanted to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay. But I couldn't, because I would be lying, and because I needed to stand firm. The house is already sold, Michael. I signed the contract this morning. The new owners close in 6 weeks. You have until then to find another place. 6 weeks? How are we going to find something in 6 weeks? I found this house while working 3 jobs and raising a child alone. You are 2 adults with stable jobs and no children. If I could do it, so can you. I stood up from the sofa. There was nothing more to say. Oh, and one more thing. Starting tomorrow, I'm changing all the passwords for the utilities. Electricity, water, gas, internet, everything is in my name, and I'll be closing those accounts when I leave. If you want to continue having services until the end, you'll have to open them in your own name. You're going to cut off our utilities too? I'm not cutting them off. I'm just stopping paying for you. Something I should have done a long time ago. I went up to my room and closed the door. I could hear Michael crying in the living room. Then I heard Jessica come out of the room. I heard them start to argue again, her blaming him feeling lost, both of them facing the consequences of their actions. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel joy in their suffering. I just felt a deep exhaustion and a small glimmer of peace. The following days were tense. Michael and Jessica started desperately looking for apartments. I heard them making calls, scheduling visits, arguing about prices and locations. The reality of having to pay their own rent, their own bills, their own food was hitting them like a bucket of cold water. One afternoon, Jessica intercepted me in the hallway. I need to talk to you. All right. We sat in the living room. She looked different. None of that arrogance she always carried. Almost humble. I know I haven't been fair to you. I know I treated you badly. And I'm sorry. Her words sounded sincere. But they came too late. Thank you for apologizing. But that doesn't change anything. Not even if we promise things will be different. Promises are easy to make when you're desperate, Jessica. But I'm not interested in promises. I was interested in actions. And your actions over the last 2 years told me everything I needed to know. She bit her lip. I saw her fighting back tears. Michael told me you paid for everything, that the house was in your name. I didn't know. He made me believe it belonged to both of them. That you just lived here because we were helping you. And you believed him without question, without asking me, without trying to find out the truth. You're right. I was a fool and ungrateful. You're not a fool, Jessica. You just assumed an old woman couldn't own her own house. You assumed I was a burden and not a support. You assumed a lot of things without bothering to really know me. She fell silent. There was nothing she could say to defend herself. What hurts me the most isn't that you treated me badly. It's that you convinced my son it was okay to do it. It's that you destroyed the relationship I had with him. That I won't forgive easily. I stood up to leave. She stayed there, sitting, her head bowed. Just so you know, we found an apartment. It's small and far away, but it's all we can afford. We're moving out next week. I'm glad you found something. And it was true. I didn't want them to end up on the street. I just wanted them to understand the value of things, the value of work, the value of gratitude, the value of treating people well. A week later, a moving truck arrived. Michael and Jessica packed their things in silence. Furniture they had brought, clothes, books, appliances they had bought. The movers went back and forth carrying boxes. I stayed in my room during the whole process. I didn't want to make this harder than it already was. I didn't want to see Michael's face. I didn't want to feel the temptation to tell them to stay. When they were finished, Michael came up to say goodbye. We're leaving now. I wish you well. He stood in my doorway. He wanted to say something else. I saw him searching for the words. I know it's pointless to say it now, but I'm really sorry, Mom. Sorry for everything. I wish I could go back in time and do things differently. I wish you could too. But we can't. We can only move forward. Will I be able to see you? Can I visit you when you move? I don't know, Michael. I need time. I need to heal. I need to find myself again. Maybe someday. But not now. He nodded. He understood. Or at least he was beginning to. I love you, Mom. I love you too. I'll always love you. But loving doesn't mean accepting just anything. And I can no longer accept how you treated me. He left without another word. I heard his footsteps going down the stairs. I heard the front door close. I heard the truck starting. And then, silence. A deep, heavy silence. The house was empty. Just me and my thoughts. I sat on my bed for a long time, looking at my room, looking at the phrases on the mirror, looking at the suitcases already packed in the corner, waiting for the day of my own move. I cried. Not from regret, but for everything that had been lost. For the relationship with my son, that might never be the same. For the years I spent sacrificing, believing it would secure his love. For the lost innocence. But I also felt relief. The house was mine again. Completely mine. I could breathe without feeling judged. I could walk without feeling watched. I could exist without feeling invisible. The days passed more quickly after that. Without Michael and Jessica in the house, everything was calmer. I began to pack my own things slowly, without rushing, without stress. Ruth came to visit almost every day. She helped me pack. She kept me company. She reminded me that I was doing the right thing. How are you feeling? Better than I expected. It still hurts. But it's a clean pain. Not like the pain from before that was rotting me from the inside. I'm glad, honey. You look different. Lighter. I feel different. Like I've been carrying a weight for years and I've finally put it down. 3 weeks later, the closing day arrived. Natalie accompanied me to the lawyer's office. The young couple was there with their baby. They were excited. Nervous. Full of dreams. Just as I once was when I bought that house. We signed the papers. One by one. My hand shook a little. But I didn't stop. When we finished, the lawyer handed me a check. $72,000. Congratulations, Mrs. Miller. The sale is complete. I gave the keys to the young couple. The woman hugged me. Thank you. We will take very good care of your house. I know. I can see it in your eyes. And it was true. I saw in them the same love I once felt for that house. The same dream of building something. Of having a home. I left the lawyer's office with the check in my purse. I went straight to the bank. I deposited the money into my new account. The account only I knew about. The account no one else could touch. $72,000. $72,000 that represented my freedom. My new life. My second chance. The next day, I closed on the apartment I had put a deposit on. $30,000. A small but bright space in a quiet building on the other side of town. Far from the memories. Far from the pain. Far from everything that had hurt me. I had $42,000 left in the bank. Enough to live peacefully for years. Enough to not depend on anyone. Enough to be free. Moving day arrived on a sunny Saturday. I hired a small truck for my things. I didn't have much. Clothes, photographs, a few pieces of furniture I had bought with my own money, my mother's dishes, the books I loved, the plants from my garden that I had carefully transplanted into pots. Ruth came to help. 2 neighbors who had become friends over the past few months also came. Women who understood, who had been through their own battles, who celebrated my courage. When the truck was loaded, I took one last walk through the empty house. My footsteps echoed in the unfurnished rooms. I touched the walls I had once painted. I looked out at the garden where Michael played as a child. I breathed the air of that place that had been my home for 18 years. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the joys. Thank you even for the pain. It all brought me here. I locked the door and left the key in the mailbox, as Natalie had instructed. The young couple would pick it up later. It wasn't my responsibility anymore. It wasn't my problem anymore. It wasn't my home anymore. The new apartment was everything I had dreamed of. Small but cozy, with a living room that opened onto a balcony where the morning sun streamed in. A kitchen where I could cook whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. A bathroom that was all mine. A bedroom with just enough space for my bed and my dresser. Ruth helped me unpack. We hung new curtains that I had picked out myself. We arranged the furniture. We put the plants on the balcony where they would get light all day. In a few hours, that empty space was transformed into a home. My home, mine alone. That night, after everyone had left and I was alone for the first time in my new apartment, I sat on the balcony with a cup of tea. The city stretched out before me, lights twinkling in the distance. Distant sounds of life. The cool night air on my face. I took out a piece of paper and wrote one last sentence. In the end, it's not the house or the money that defines you. It's your ability to get back up, time and time again. I taped it to the mirror in my new bathroom, next to the other 4 I had brought with me. 5 reminders of my journey. 5 truths I would never forget. The first few months in my new home were about discovery. I discovered I liked eating breakfast on the balcony watching the sunrise. I discovered I could spend hours reading without interruption. I discovered I enjoyed cooking when I didn't have to do it out of obligation. I discovered I liked the silence. I also discovered it was okay to be alone. That alone didn't mean lonely. That I could be happy, without needing anyone's approval. That my worth didn't depend on how much I gave to others, but on how much I valued myself. Ruth continued to visit me every week. We drank coffee on the balcony and talked about everything. Our lives, our children, our dreams. She became more than a friend. She became the sister I never had. I also met my neighbors. Mr. Peterson, a 70-year-old widower who lived in the apartment next door. Clara, a 50-year-old woman who worked as a teacher. Maria, a young single mother with 2 small children. We all became a small family, a chosen family, a family that looked out for each other without self-interest, without manipulation, just with genuine affection. 3 months after I moved, Michael called me. I hadn't heard from him since the day he moved out. I let the phone ring twice before answering. Hello, Mom. Hello, Michael. An awkward silence. Neither of us knew what to say. I was calling to see how you are. To find out where you're living now. I'm fine. I live in an apartment on the other side of town. It's small but comfortable. It's perfect for me. I'm glad. We. Jessica and I were wondering if we could see you, if we could talk. I'm not ready for that yet, Michael. It's been 3 months, I know. But I need more time. I need to be sure that when we see each other, I won't fall back into the same patterns. I won't give in when I should stand firm. I won't make myself small so you can feel big. I miss you, Mom. His voice cracked a little, and my heart tightened, because I missed him too. I missed my son, the boy he was, the man he could have been. I miss you too. But missing me isn't enough. I need to know you understand. That you really understand what you did to me, what you allowed to be done to me. I understand now. Believe me, I get it. Living on our own, paying our own bills, realizing how much everything costs. It's been hard. And I've realized everything you did for us, everything you gave without asking for anything in return. I don't want you to thank me because you now understand the value of money. I want you to understand that you treated me with disrespect, that you made me feel invisible, that you abused my generosity and my love. I know, and I'm sorrier than I can possibly express. I need time, Michael. Maybe in a few months, maybe longer. I don't know. But when I'm ready, I'll call you. Okay, I'll wait. We hung up. And I cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. Relief that I had been able to stand firm. Relief that I hadn't given in to his plea. Relief that I was choosing myself. The months continued to pass. Autumn arrived with its golden leaves, then winter with its cold air, and finally, spring with its promises of renewal. I flourished along with the spring. I signed up for a knitting class at the community center. I learned to make scarves and sweaters. I met other women my age. We shared stories. We laughed. We supported each other. I also started volunteering at a soup kitchen. Twice a week, I served food to homeless people. It reminded me of where I came from. It reminded me there was always someone who had less. It reminded me to be grateful. One day, almost a year after I had moved, I was on my balcony when my phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Mrs. Susan Miller? Yes, this is she. This is Sarah Jenkins. I'm a social worker at General Hospital. Your son Michael was here this morning. He was in a minor car accident. He's fine, just some bruises, but he gave us your number as his emergency contact. My heart stopped for a second. Is he okay? Can I speak to him? Yes, just a moment. I heard some noise. Then Michael's voice, weak but clear. Mom. Michael, what happened? Are you okay? I'm fine. It was just a scare. We collided with another car, but it wasn't serious. It's just. They listed you as my emergency contact, and I needed to hear your voice. I'm on my way. It wasn't a decision. It was an instinct. He was my son, and no matter what had happened, he was still my son. I got to the hospital 20 minutes later. Michael was sitting on an examination table with a bandage on his forehead. Jessica was by his side, pale and frightened. When she saw me walk in, her eyes filled with tears. Mom, you came. Of course I came. I hugged him, and in that hug, I felt everything. The love that never left, the pain that was still there, the hope that maybe, someday, we could heal. We talked for hours in the waiting room while they ran precautionary tests on Michael. Jessica told me they had been going to therapy, that they were working on their relationship, that she was learning to value people. Michael told me he had been saving money, that he wanted to pay me back the money he owed me, that he wanted to rebuild our relationship. I don't need you to pay me back the money, Michael. I need you to be a better person. I need you to treat the people who love you with kindness. I need you to value what you have. I will, Mom. I promise. And this time I believed him, not because his words were different, but because I could see in his eyes that something had changed, that he had learned, that he had grown. This doesn't mean everything goes back to the way it was. It doesn't mean I'm going to live with you again or support you financially, but it means we can try to rebuild something. Slowly, with respect, with boundaries. That's all I ask. Michael was discharged from the hospital that afternoon with no serious injuries. I drove them to their apartment. It was small, as they had said. Simple, but it was clean and tidy. It had photos of the two of them on the walls, plants in the window. It was a home they had built with their own effort. It's nice. Jessica smiled timidly. Thanks. We've worked hard to make it feel like home. I stayed for coffee with them. We talked about simple things, their jobs, my knitting class, the neighbors. It was awkward at times. There were still wounds that hadn't fully healed, but it was a start. When I said goodbye that night, Michael hugged me tight. Thank you for coming today. Thank you for giving me another chance. It's not a chance, Michael. It's a beginning. A different beginning, with different rules, but a beginning. I returned to my apartment that night with mixed emotions, happy to have seen my son, relieved he was okay, but also firm in my decision to maintain my boundaries, to not lose myself again in the process of loving others. I sat on my balcony with my usual cup of tea. I looked at the stars shining in the night sky, and I smiled. I had traveled a long and painful road. I had lost my house. I had lost the relationship I had with my son. I had lost the illusion that unconditional love was enough. But I had gained something much more valuable. I had gained myself. I had recovered my dignity. I had learned that loving myself was not selfish, that setting boundaries was not cruel, that choosing myself didn't mean abandoning others. I took out my paper and read the 5 sentences that had guided me on this journey. I deserve more than this. I don't need permission to start over. The day is coming when they will stop underestimating me. I didn't come for revenge. I came to get back what belongs to me. In the end, it's not the house or the money that defines you. It's your ability to get back up, time and time again. And I got back up, time and time again. And I will keep getting back up, because I learned that it's never too late to start over, that at 64, you can still rebuild a life, that a woman's value isn't in how much she gives, but in how much she values herself. I learned that it's okay to say no, that it's okay to set boundaries, that it's okay to choose yourself without feeling guilty. And above all, I learned that freedom has no price, that peace is non-negotiable, that dignity is the only thing no one can take from you, unless you let them. And I don't let them anymore. This is my story. The story of Susan Miller, a woman who sold her house, closed her accounts, changed all her passwords, and started over. Not out of revenge, not out of hatred, but out of self-love, out of survival, out of dignity. And if my story can help just one woman realize her own worth, if it can inspire someone to choose herself, if it can remind someone that it's never too late to start over, then every tear, every pain, every difficult moment will have been worth it. Because in the end, this wasn't about the house. It was about getting myself back. And that is priceless.